This is the DC Sports Show. If you're not familiar with college football, that is the fight song for the Pennsylvania State University Nittany Lions. Today, the NCAA leveled heavy sanctions on the university for the Jerry Sandusky sex abuse scandal. I'm going to address that now. First of all, I got to say that I know a lot of people who have very close ties to Penn State, and I do feel for what they're having to deal with and what they're going through today. I can't even imagine. And this is coming from a Miami Hurricane fan who has spent half of his life on probation. But I just want to address the main points because I just want to come out and say I agree with the punishment. And I'll go over why, point by point, and why it needed to be done. Firstly, the $60 million fine was the first thing announced. I think that's just, and I think that's better than the death penalty because instead of having no football and creating no revenue for that school and for that town, they're basically playing for free. And they didn't pull that $60 million fine out of midair. They thought about it, and it was equivalent to about a year's worth of revenue for the football team. That money is going to go to charity for the prevention and care of sex abuse victims. And it's pretty much community service. The football team is going to fill that stadium. The alumni is going to support this team more than ever. And all the money that goes to those 6 Saturdays in the fall are going to go to a good cause. And I think that's right because the football team was the moving vehicle that Jerry Sandusky used to lure these boys into years in abuse in the first place. I mean, it's. I know Penn State fans are going to say no. This is Sandusky. This isn't a football issue. It is a football issue. It's a football issue in the fact that the athletic program was the vehicle. It was the way Sandusky lured them in. And I think it's only fitting that the football team use its resources and use the big pockets to take care of, these charities and put an endowment out for sex abuse victims. I think that's the core of this. The bowl ban, 4 years, no bowls. Look, that's kind of, honestly, I think it's kind of a slap on the wrist. No bowls, okay. So you don't go to the Poland Weed Eater Bowl, and you don't go to the GoDaddy.com Bowl brought to you by Ritz Crackers in Boise, Idaho on the Blue Field in December Bowl. Penn State wasn't going to a big bowl anyway in the next couple years. Let's get serious. So you don't go to a bowl game for 4 years. That's, is that going to affect recruiting? Somewhat. Didn't affect USC too bad. They were banned for a bowl for 2 years, and they seem to do okay. What happens, though, is the scholarships. That's crushing. They are going to be playing with 20 less scholarships than every other D1 team in the Big Ten in the country, and it is going to be very, very difficult to compete on the field at a D1 level for Penn State with this. That is going to cause commits to decommit. It's going to cause people who have been considering Penn State to walk away, and I hate to say this for them, but it's going to be difficult because a lot of these guys are going to go to rival Big Ten schools. Michigan, Ohio State, Pitt. So that is devastating for Penn State. Now, the people who are out screaming and crying about, Penn State didn't get due process and the NCAA has no right to punish them because it's not an athletic issue. Let me address that right now. First of all, I need all the Penn State people to take off their Penn State colored glasses because you got to see this as what it is. The free report that many of the Penn State supporters have been screaming at, saying it was, there was a vendetta against them, they're out to get them, and it's biased, and this and that. You need to remember who authorized that report. Your Board of Trustees. That is a Penn State funded independent investigation. And they were going to find and accept full responsibility from this report. And that's what happened. You might not like what came out in that report, but that's what happened. And that's what was paid for by your university. Penn State said going in that they were going to look at every aspect of that school, and they did. So you can't say that the free report is just hearsay, somebody's opinion, this and that. Penn State authorized that report themselves. To the fact that the NCAA did not give them due process. This is a tricky one. I understand the frustration, but you need to look at it like this. This hasn't been done before. This process hasn't been seen before. The NCAA has never managed a criminal case before because they've never had one in front of them that involved athletics. And don't say it didn't involve athletics, because it did. The preservation of the football team took precedence over the welfare of children. That is an athletic problem, that is a compliance problem, and that is a violation of the ethics code of the NCAA. Look it up, Section 10. The NCAA had to act, and Penn State had to listen, because Penn State did not want the NCAA to wait to... If NCAA did their usual due process and took their normal 3 to 4 years to get around to something, I mean, how long did it take for them to find out about Ohio State giving away free tattoos? It took 2 years. Tattoos. We're talking about a decade-long cover-up of child abuse that is getting done in 10 days. Do you know why? There is no chance that Penn State wants anything to do with what might come out when the Department of Justice and the Department of Education, who have subpoena power, unlike the free report, unlike the NCAA, these guys can walk into the second mile and they can pull out any file, any computer hard drive they want. And that's where it's gonna get ugly. And don't think for a second it's not over. Okay? It is not over. The Department of Justice is going to go in, and you guys are going to hear about things, and things are going to come out that is going to blow our minds. I guarantee it. So Erickson, the president of your school, went into preservation mode, and he took the deal today. He didn't want to wait 3 years for this whole government investigation to come, because trust me, once that stuff comes out and the NCAA hadn't come down on them, boy, you would wish to go back and take this deal, because in 4 years, you'll be back operating normally. It's going to take a long time for you to get good again, because the scars will still be there, but trust me, if you waited 3 years for the Department of Justice's report to come out and the Department of Education's report to come out, and then let the NCAA rule on you, boy, think about that for a second. They were going to give you the death penalty this morning for 4 years today if they didn't take the deal. Just imagine for 1 second what they're going to pull out of that second mile building in a couple of years. It's going to take a couple of years to figure this all out, but you don't want to know what the punishment would have been if you wanted due process. So the people who are crying about due process and the NCAA didn't do what it normally does, you should be thanking your lucky stars today that you guys even have a football team. That being said, Penn State before November was known as one of the Goliaths of college football. You got USC, Texas, Ohio State, Michigan. I mean, these are the big balls in college football. Big alumni, big pockets, big money, okay? Penn State will recover from this. It's going to take a long time. It's going to take longer than the 4-year probation period, but they are going to recover from this because they have money. The people that are like, oh, SMU never recovered. It took them 25 years to be good again. SMU wasn't good to begin with. SMU was a tiny private school in Texas that wanted to compete with Texas and Texas A&M and Baylor and Rice and all those other guys in Texas. They weren't good going in. They cheated to win, and it worked, and they got caught. And they went back to being crappy. Okay, a 3-8 team wanted to be a 10-1 team, and that's how they cheated. And then they went back to being a 3-8 team. The fact that they sucked for 20 years after they came out of the death penalty didn't change anything. They sucked going in. Penn State had more donations this year than last year. Alumni support this school. They're going to continue to support this school, and they are going to continue to donate money to pay the $60 million fine, to pay the lawsuits that are coming around the corner, to support the school, to support State College, Pennsylvania. Okay? The loss of scholarships that USC had to deal with a couple years ago, okay, they dealt with because they have money. They have resources. They have a huge football program. It is part of their culture. They recovered. When the preseason rankings come out in about 2 weeks, I'm willing to put money on the table that USC is ranked number 1. Number 1. And if you think for a second that Penn State is not going to recover from this, you're crazy. It might not be 4 years, it might be 6 years, it might be 8, it might be 10. But I guarantee you, Penn State will recover from this. They need to learn a lesson. They need to reorganize their culture. They need to reorganize their school. And they need to get their priorities back. The fact that these people are standing in front of a statue outside of a man that they have honored for decades, after the facts that he has covered up child abuse for years, that is the culture that needs to go away. You need to stop idolizing things and put pride back into your school, not the people. Now, that's all I have to say about that. Again, I know there's a lot of people listening that have close ties to Penn State, and I totally feel for you today. But that punishment was fair, and it needed to happen, and it's going to make Penn State better off in the long run, and it's going to help thousands of children as well. And that's what this is ultimately about. It's about putting the priorities first. It's just football. I love football. I love football. But you cannot put the football team before the school, before the state it represents, and before young people. And that's the core of it. And that's what the NCAA tried to do today, to make sure that doesn't happen again. And I believe it won't. Next time we'll be talking NFL. We're going to do the NFC East preview. We're going to get into the NFC preview. And like I said, it's football season, so I will talk to you guys soon. And this has been the DC Sports Show. Later.